drugs might be about to get cheaper with new policies. Though conversely, no-cost health measures might be about to get more expensive. And Ohio just saved millions, but you'll never guess how, he said sarcastically. That's just some of what we're talking about on today's RX Report, where you get your health and your news delivered. I'm your host, Manuel, coming to you from the home of pharmacy at the American Pharmacists Association here in Washington, D.C. We've got a lot to get into today, so be sure to click that like and subscribe button, leave a comment on anything and everything that we've talked about today to let me know your thoughts, and let's dive in. In today's world where it feels like everything is crazy expensive, it can be a nice reprieve to get our anything for free. Believe it or not, one of those free things for millions of Americans has been specific treatments in healthcare. Now, I can hear the masses already yelling about the crazy healthcare costs, so let me explain. Under the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, a government task force was created to determine what preventative health services insurers would have to cover without cost, or at least at low cost. This group is called the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, which is not an awesome spy group, but probably should be. And it operates out of the Department of Health and Human Services, and was in charge of deciding what services would be low to no cost. These services include lots of things, from cancer screenings, colonoscopies, PrEP medications to prevent HIV, and cholesterol-lowering medications. Obviously, having easy access to these meds and procedures is great, but there is potential change on the horizon. A group of businesses has challenged the task force's arrangement with insurances, saying that the force is not legally structured and has unchecked power to influence the healthcare system. For some context, the members of this task force are experts and are appointed by the HHS secretary, but not by the Senate, and are supposed to be independent of political influence. The current administration is defending the existence and autonomy of the task force, arguing that since the HHS secretary is Senate confirmed and has the ability to remove any of the members of the task force at will, the force should remain in its current state. Now, according to American medical organizations, over 150 million Americans rely on early screenings and interventions for chronic conditions enabled by this task force. A representative at the National Health Law Program, a nonprofit group that advocates for low-income communities, said, quote, "The ACA's preventative services requirement has been a game changer, providing access to evidence-based preventative care and early detection of serious medical conditions. A decision on the case is expected in June, so we will keep you posted on any developments, but I've got to ask, what are your thoughts on the task force and the subsequent services it deems low cost being potentially removed? Let me know your thoughts in those comments below. Now, we'll get to our next big stories in a sec, but right now it's time for some fast ones on quick doses. All right, enough talk about things getting pricey. Let's talk coupons, baby! Okay, not coupons, but some medicines may be getting cheaper in the semi-near future. The Trump administration has made an executive order aimed at lowering drug prices. Hooray! This order included expanding Medicare drug price negotiations, reevaluating PBMs' ability to jack up drug prices, RX Report's bad penny, combating anti-competitive behavior, and mandating health centers provide certain insulin and epinephrine discounts. Now, you'll never hear me complaining about fighting against monopolistic practices or lowering prices unless I'm playing Monopoly, in which case I take no prisoners. And you should definitely be afraid because those railroads are mine, and I will make them mine one way or another. That was kind of a weird tangent. Anyway, lower drug prices, yes. For our last dose, APhA has installed Brian Lawson as executive director of its Board of Pharmacy Specialties, aka BPS, the leader in pharmacy board certification. Lawson, who has been serving as an interim executive director following the retirement of William Ellis, was the natural choice for the permanent position, according to APhA executive vice president and CEO Michael Hogue. The association conducted an exhaustive nationwide search, but ultimately determined that Lawson's track record of innovation, strategic vision, and collaboration with pharmacy professionals across the board and across the globe will ensure BPS continues to grow in its mission to improve patient care through board recertification, according to Hogue. Lawson has more than 10 years of service with BPS, where his leadership has contributed to BPS expanding global reach, including greater visibility of board-certified pharmacists worldwide. Good job, Brad. For our next main story, gather around the campfire as Uncle Mason tells a story. A few years ago, after doing a super squat that was a few times my body weight, I felt a little pop. No big deal, I told myself. Anyway, fast forward to the end, and it turns out I popped a disc in my back, and I had to get it replaced with a shiny new one to make me part Terminator. Why am I telling you this story, I hear you ask? To brag about my super squat, obviously, but also to segue into the fact that to get a new disc, I needed to get a couple of CT scans, which were doctor recommended, but I'm kind of thinking about lots now. Why? Because a new study has found that CT scans could eventually be responsible for 5% of all cancer diagnosed in the US in just a single year.
How many times have you gone to your doctor only to have him or her prescribe a CT scan? That is, according to the Cleveland Clinic, an imaging test, a series of x-rays that create detailed images of your bones and soft tissue. It's often used to detect cancer, and now it might even cause it.
Yeah, that's a bit of a mood killer, not gonna lie. Look, CT scans are incredibly useful for diagnosing things like kidney stones, tumors, aneurysms, blood clots, and other life-threatening ailments. But the undeniable truth of being exposed to that much radiation is that it has its drawbacks. While sometimes CT scans are definitely warranted, recent research of a study published in JAMA Internal Medicine found that use of CT scans has raised by 35% since 2007, in part due to what the study calls low-value, potentially unnecessary imaging. Now, an important asterisk here. The 5% number I mentioned was based on statistical modeling instead of actual patient incomes, meaning that it is possible to happen, but hasn't actually happened. If you're wondering what you can do as a patient to limit your exposure to CT radiation, the answer is actually shockingly simple. Ask your doctors if they can use a low dose of radiation when they scan you. Sometimes you will need a CT scan, there's just no way around that, but taking the preemptive step to ask your doctor for lower exposure could make all the difference if this study is to be believed. But I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts? Will you ask your doctor for potential alternatives or lower rad exposure next time you get your CT order? God forbid I attempt a super bench one day. I am definitely going to see what other options I have after bragging on Instagram, of course, as one does. For our final story, today's show has had an unintentional focus on money. So let's write it out with our final story coming out of Ohio. The Buckeye State is probably feeling pretty happy with itself at the moment for good reason. Let me explain, and that's the last time I'll say it this episode, I promise. The Ohio Department of Medicaid has, like most of the country, been in a reality TV-worthy fight with PBMs for a generous portion of its existence. However, unlike many other states, Ohio decided to keep the rose and love itself rather than stick with its bad boyfriend. And thanks to the advocacy of the Ohio Pharmacists Association, they sent big PBMs packing and created a new system for paying for drugs. Now, again, PBMs or pharmacy benefit managers, RX Report's aforementioned bad penny that just keeps showing up in this show, justify their existence by saying that they lower the cost of drugs. Many are, shall we say, skeptical of that claim, and Ohio put that to the test by mostly ridding themselves of PBMs in 2022. And by golly, wouldn't you know it, Ohio saved an absolute ton of money, around a net savings of $140 million, actually. Now, I don't know exactly how PBM's math works out to save states $140 million, but they are going to need a heck of a good accountant to beat that. Not only did Ohio save a bunch of cheddar, but they were able to also boost drug dispensing fees to pharmacists by, now wait for it, 1,200%. 1,200! That is a massive factor that has gone a massive way towards keeping pharmacies in business when so many others in other states are closing across the country. So how did Ohio do this? Around 80% of insured drug transactions are controlled by 3 big PBMs, which again argue that they use their size to squeeze savings for insurers and in turn patients. As we have talked about many times on this show though, those savings seem to kind of be overblown at best or complete baloney at the worst. Ohio decided to rid themselves of these PBMs for Medicaid patients and create their own state-run PBM where they could clearly see the transactional data for drugs and then price them accordingly. The results speak for themselves. With Ohio unbundling the services that big PBMs offered and removing the markups that they had plagued drugs with, the savings were staggering. Not only that, but this new single Ohio-run PBM gives patients freedom of choice with their pharmacy. According to the Ohio Medicaid Department, quote, members are provided their options and are free to select pharmacy providers that best meet their needs. Sounds like a pretty good start to me. But I really love to know your thoughts here. What do you think about a single state-run PBM option for drug pricing? If you're a pharmacist, does that make your job easier or harder? If you are from a PBM, I would honestly love to know your ideas on matching the account savings for state drugs. Let me know your thoughts in those comments below. And that is our show. If this episode made you want to save a couple $100 million, then let me know in those comments below. Let me know what you'd buy with it, maybe. We also have a special congratulations for Patrick Holt, who left us a wonderful comment, like, and subscribe on our last video. Patrick, we are sending you a gift card and we'll send a DM soon. If you want to be the next lucky winner and have a chance to win a gift card, be sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. We may be reaching out to you soon too. Our executive producer is Rob Hodges. Our creative producer is Kate Erdmann. And until next time, I'm your host, Mason Manuel. Be sure to tune in next Friday for more RX Report, where you get your health, your news delivered. But till then, bye y'all.